The morning I left her, the light streamed in, catching the dust motes, dancing in the air. Amelia was still asleep, her hand resting on my stomach, right over the tiny, almost non-existent bump that held all my hopes and all my secrets. I stood there, just watching her, trying to burn the image of her peaceful face into my memory. This was the woman I loved more than life itself, and I was about to walk out on her without a single word. It wasn't because the love had faded. God, no. It was because I was convinced that leaving was the only way to protect her, to save her from more pain. You see, Amelia's biggest dream was to be a mother. We'd poured years of our lives, our savings, and our emotional energy into IVF. Each failed attempt was a tiny death, a fresh wave of grief that threatened to pull us under. I remembered the day she finally broke. She looked at me, her eyes hollow, and said, "I can't do this anymore, Claire. I can't." I understood. I really did. But that deep, primal ache for a child, it didn't just disappear for me. It was a constant hum beneath the surface of my days. So when a dear friend offered to be my donor, a flicker of hope ignited in me, a dangerous, reckless hope. I made the decision all on my own. It was a terrible, selfish thing to do. I know that now. But in my mind, I was crafting this grand romantic gesture. I imagined the moment I'd tell her how she'd be shocked at first, but then she'd see the ultrasound, she'd feel the first kick, and all the pain would melt away. She'd see our baby, our asterisk family, finally becoming real. I was so wrong. The day I told her, her face didn't light up with joy. It crumbled. She looked at me as if she'd never seen me before, as if I were a complete stranger who had just broken into her home. "You made the biggest decision of our lives without me," she whispered, and the words were colder than any shout could have been. How do we ever come back from that? The silence that followed was deafening. I didn't have an answer. All I had was fear and shame. So I ran. I packed a bag, took what little money I had, and disappeared. I moved to a city where no one knew my name or my story. I became someone else. And in that quiet, lonely new life, I raised my daughter. I named her Hope. A bit on the nose, I know, but it was the only thing that kept me going. Every time she smiled, I saw Amelia. She had Amelia's dimples, her infectious laugh, the funny way she'd crinkle her brow when she was concentrating on a drawing. Some nights, after Hope was tucked in and dreaming, the dam would break. I'd sit in the dark and just cry. The weight of my choice, the ghost of the life I'd left behind, crushing me. Did I do the right thing? The question haunted me. Years flew by in a blur of scraped knees, bedtime stories, and macaroni art. Hope turned 5, and with that milestone came the inevitable, heart-wrenching questions. Mommy, where is my other mom? How do you explain a story like ours to a 5-year-old? I tried my best. I told her that her other mom was someone who loved us very, very much once upon a time. And that maybe, just maybe, she still did from somewhere far away. It felt like a flimsy fairy tale, even to me. Then, one sunny Saturday afternoon, the universe decided to play its hand. I was volunteering at a community art fair, helping kids splatter paint onto canvases. The air was filled with laughter and the smell of popcorn. And then I heard it, a voice. A voice I hadn't heard in 5 years, but one that my heart recognized instantly. Kureru? My breath caught in my throat. Everything went into slow motion. I turned, and there she was. Amelia, she was older, of course. There were fine lines around her eyes that weren't there before. A certain sharpness to her that spoke of battles fought and survived. But she was still so devastatingly beautiful it made my chest ache. Her eyes, which had been scanning the crowd, landed on me, and then they dropped to the small girl with paint-smeared hands holding on to my leg. She froze. I could see her mind racing, connecting the dots. She's double quotes. Amelia started, her voice barely a whisper. My daughter, I finished for her, my own voice surprisingly steady. The next question hung in the air between us, fragile and heavy. Amelia's voice trembled as she asked it. Our daughter. I could only nod. The years of anger and hurt on her face just melted away, replaced by a wave of raw emotion. Tears welled in her eyes as she slowly knelt down, bringing herself to Hope's level. Hi there, she said, her voice shaking with unshed tears. You look so much like your mom. Hope, my brave and sweet little girl, just gave a shy smile. Are you Mommy's friend? She asked, and that innocent question, it just shattered me. It broke something deep inside both of us. Amelia looked up at me, and in her eyes, I saw everything. The years of pain, the confusion, the endless loop of what if that must have plagued her just as it had plagued me. Why didn't you tell me where you were? She whispered, the question laced with 5 years of unspoken anguish. My own throat was tight. I didn't think you wanted to know, I confessed. The way you looked at me, I thought I had ruined everything forever. She shook her head, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. I was hurt, and I was so angry, but I never, not for 1 second, stopped loving you, or the idea of what we could have been. We talked for hours that day, right there amidst the chaos of the art fair. We found a quiet bench, and the words just poured out. We talked about Hope, about her first steps, her first word, all the little moments Amelia had missed. We talked about the years we'd lost, the parallel lives we'd been living. We talked about everything we had been too young, too proud, and too afraid to face back then. For a little while, sitting there in the late afternoon sun, it felt like maybe we could fix it, like we could just press rewind and start over. But life isn't a movie. You can't just edit out the painful scenes. Fate has a cruel sense of humor and a way of reminding you that time only moves in one direction. Amelia had a life now, a good life. She had healed, and part of that healing involved someone else. She was married. She told me about her wife, a kind woman who had found her broken and had patiently helped her put the pieces back together. I never stopped thinking about you, she told me, more tears falling freely now. Not for a day, but my life, it's different now. I'm not the same person you left behind. The words stung, but they were also the truth. And I knew, deep down, that I wasn't the same person either. I smiled, a real smile, though it was laced with a profound sadness. I didn't expect you to be... We made a promise that day. For Hope, we promised to stay in touch, to build a new kind of family from the wreckage of our old one. And we did. Amelia became Aunt Amy. She was there for every birthday, every school play. She sent presents and postcards from her travels. She loved Hope fiercely, completely, but always from a respectful distance. And Hope, my wonderful daughter, she adored her Aunt Amy. She soaked up this extra love without question, as children so often do. One evening, long after Hope was asleep, my phone buzzed with a message from Amelia. I opened it. It read, asterisk. Thank you for letting me know her. And thank you for forgiving me, even when I couldn't forgive myself. Asterisk, I stared at the words, feeling the weight of them. I thought for a long time before I typed my reply, asterisk, you saved me. Even when I thought I was lost, asterisk, sometimes love doesn't mean a storybook happy ending. Sometimes it's quieter than that. It's about finding a sense of peace after the storm has passed. It's about gratitude. Amelia and I didn't get to grow old together. We didn't get the life we once dreamed of, but in the bright, beautiful laughter of our daughter, we both found something that would last forever. We found the proof that love, even when it's broken and bruised, can still leave something absolutely beautiful in its wake. Thanks so much for watching. If this story touched you, please consider liking and subscribing for more. See you next time.